What's up, everybody? We are live here on the Falcons Podcast with Garrett Chapman. Give me 1 second. I'm going to add in our friends over on Facebook and on Twitter, and then we're going to get going. Welcome in. I see some people already starting to join. And we are live. What's up, everybody? My name is Garrett Chapman. This is the Falcons Podcast. Thank you so much for everybody who's going to join us, whether you're doing it live or maybe after the fact. Merry Christmas to everybody. Happy New Year. All the above. Happy Hanukkah. Happy everything. I hope everybody has a fantastic holiday season. And look, the Atlanta Falcons got some good news today. How about that? Happy Tuesday. I'm very excited about that when we'll talk about that. Plus, we'll react to what we saw on Sunday. The Falcons got another big win. Now, granted, it's against the Arizona Cardinals, a team who's lost 7 games in a row now. But you know what? It's been a tough 2025, and we're going to take every little bit of what we can get. Big thank you to everybody who's joining live. If you are, make sure to like the video. Make sure to hit that subscribe button if you were not already. If you're on YouTube, if you're on Facebook, hit that like button. If you are on Twitter, give me a follow at GChapATL. Big thank you to all of you who are joining me here. So we're going to start with the Pro Bowl announcement. We're going to get into those reactions for what we saw with the Arizona Cardinals on Sunday. But we're also going to talk about what some options can be for the Atlanta Falcons moving forward. I will also take your questions. So if you have anything and you want to take part in the show, make sure to drop it in the comment section, and I will get to as many of those as possible. So what are the big Falcons options? I see Keith Robbins, 805. He's dropping over there. He says Tua. Okay, well, Tua is going to be on my list, and I will bring him up. We will talk about Tua. Craig says, I wish Joe Burrow, but I can only dream. Yeah, that might be a bit of a pipe dream. You know, I just saw the report that Joe Burrow was not on the trading block necessarily, but back in 2020, the Miami Dolphins tried to trade four first-round picks for Joe Burrow, and they still said no. He's since – that was before he was drafted, mind you. He has since been an MVP caliber quarterback, and I just don't see it necessarily as a feasible, tangible option here for the Atlanta Falcons, mostly because the Bengals are not going to trade him. They're just not going to do it. So he is not going to make my list. If he becomes available, Falcons might as well make a call. I don't think that they have a lot of players necessarily that or assets that you can send. I mean, you probably need to send Bijan Robinson and maybe a handful of first-round picks. You don't have one in 2026, but maybe you have to send you reach on Kyle Pitts and send him over alongside of a host of other things. It would be a very, very expensive deal. It would be probably one of the biggest deals in NFL history. So that would be pretty difficult. Craig, Air Force, says, happy holidays. Happy holidays to you too, Craig. Keith Robbins, 805, says, what was the good news? Well, so glad you asked. Well, the Atlanta Falcons had 2 players who were named to the Pro Bowl. Yeah. Very excited about that. And look, I understand, Keith, it's not necessarily the biggest news in the world, but at the same time, this means a lot of good things for these guys, especially for their checkbook. I know they hit some bonuses. Chris Lindstrom, I mean, the guy's been an anchor for the Atlanta Falcons along the right side of that offensive line since being drafted in 2019. He's now made 4 consecutive Pro Bowls. He's been dealing with a lot of injuries this season. He's been hobbled, and he's still powered through them. He's played in every single game for the team this season. He has 970 total snaps this season out of a possible 980 over 15 games. He's a killer, and he absolutely deserves it. It's cool, too, the respect that he has across the NFL, because he didn't finish in the top 10 of the fan vote. Didn't finish in the top 10 among guards, yet he's still a starter. That tells me that the NFL players and the coaches thought that highly of him, that they would have him all the way up on that list and to the point where he's going to be a starter, which is fantastic. As far as Kyle Pitts, he is a number 2 alternate tight end. The starters there for the NFC are going to be George Kittle and Trey McBride. AJ Terrell, he is going to be the number 4 alternate for cornerbacks. Starters there are Cooper DeJean, J.C. Horn, Quinyon Mitchell, and Devon Witherspoon. A lot of love for those Philadelphia Eagles, and rightfully so. Look, defending Super Bowl champions. They got 2 starters there at the cornerback position, but excited for potentially pushing his way onto that list. I think there's a pretty good chance that some of those guys don't end up taking part. So that means that Terrell might end up getting his way called up. So if you want Terrell to be in the Pro Bowl, maybe cheer for the Eagles, and then you get Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell and those guys who are going to be up there too. So, but the biggest one, of course, is Bijan Robinson. He makes his 2nd consecutive Pro Bowl. He finished 5th among players at his position for the fan vote. He received of course, the second straight nod for him. And Lindstrom is making his fourth straight. But Bijan Robinson has an exciting ceiling as far as what his postseason recognition could look like. I mean, the guy leads the NFL in scrimmage yards, 2,026. I posted on Twitter earlier after the game. Well, I should say just after the game on Sunday. He has been a lightning rod for this team. 2,026 yards. He's up over 5,000 yards. He's closing in on Christian McCaffrey's record for the most total yards for a player under the age of 24. He should break Barry Sanders' record on Sunday or on Monday when he plays the Rams, but he also is a pretty good shot of breaking the record on Monday as well. He's been a lightning rod, man. I mean, the guy is the Falcons offense. He's been absolutely everything that they could have hoped for and then some. It does mean this Pro Bowl addition, so his second Pro Bowl nod, it does mean that his fifth-year option is going to be a little bit more expensive. It's going to cost the Falcons about $4 million more just in total capital. I think 3.9 is actually the proper number. He's now going to cost 11.4 if and when they choose to pick up his fifth-year option. That would be the second highest among running backs behind only, I want to say Jonathan Taylor for the 2026 or 2025 NFL season. That, of course, a lot of those numbers change wildly. Like you have Alvin Kamara, who's set to make $18 million or something next year. Shoot, I mean, 2027 you have, which is actually ironically, I believe when he would, his fifth-year option would be taking place per se in the 2027 season, but they have to qualify it. They have to accept it. They have to announce that they're going to be picking up that fifth-year option. They'll announce that probably next summer, I think, is the deadline to do that. But that at that point, you get numbers that are jumping up into the 20s. But I don't think like Christian McCaffrey set to make like $26 million as like a cap hit, which is just an insane number. But look, they're going to pick up his fifth-year option. And ultimately, at $11.4 million for a fifth year, that's still a tremendous bargain. And if I'm the Atlanta Falcons, I'm doing absolutely every single bit that I can to try and extend him. He needs to be here in Atlanta. He is the lightning rod of this team, and he needs to remain that because he's on pace to break William Andrews' franchise record for total yards. 2,176 yards is the franchise record. He's averaging 172 yards per game total. That would put him at 2,300 yards or so, 2,369. That's pretty damn good. That gets him up there with, the same guys as Chris Johnson, 2009, Barry Sanders, Christian McCaffrey, Tiki Barber, Marshall Faulk, LaDainian Tomlinson. You know what a lot of those guys have in common? They're in the Hall of Fame. Really damn good. And he's the first player with 1,000 rushing yards, 750 receiving yards since Christian McCaffrey in 2019. I think he has a really very serious case to be an All-Pro, his first career All-Pro. Obviously, I do believe he's going to get that honor. I would be a little surprised, especially with the way we've seen Jonathan Taylor and some of these other guys kind of regress a little bit. He has some tough competition there, whether it's Christian McCaffrey, who's also having an outstanding season. It may be a Jonathan Taylor. It could be Jahmyr Gibbs. Look, there's a lot of competition at the position, but he leads the NFL in scrimmage yards. I think touchdowns might hold him back just a little bit. He has just 6 of those. If he's able to pick up a couple more touchdowns, I think that would really make him a shoe-in for it. But I will say, of those 5 players that I listed who were top 5 in scrimmage yards in NFL history, the record's 2,509. He's on pace for 2,369. I'm not going to say he's going to go break the NFL record necessarily. He needs a pretty outstanding performance in one of these last 2 games to get there, and I just don't think that that's going to happen necessarily. But of those guys, he should slot right into their top 5, maybe in at 5 or something like that. But 2 of those 5 players have won the Offensive Player of the Year. Not just All-Pro. All 5 were All-Pros, right? I mentioned the touchdowns. That might hold him back when it's all said and done, just in terms of the Offensive Player of the Year. But he certainly should be an All-Pro. That's the kind of season that Bijan Robinson has had. He has been an absolute joy. Just a tremendous presence here for this Falcons offense, and I've just been so thrilled that he's on our team and nowhere else. Keith Robbins comes through on YouTube, just says, Bijan is just so fun to watch. Absolutely right. He's a pleasure. And that's one of those things. When you watch this guy play, and I know a lot of people at times were talking about how this guy's so fast enough. He's slow on the edge or whatever. It's just because he's so smooth with it. He is so smooth when he's coming out of his breaks and he hits that juke move. It's incredible. It's unbelievable to watch this guy play. And he is so smooth when he hits the open field that he doesn't actually look like he's laboring all that much. So he doesn't look like he's all that fast. He really is that fast. He really is that fast. He's just a joy to watch. And especially when he gets into those tight spaces. I've said for now a long time that he is the best player in the NFL when it comes to tight spaces and in the way that he's able to adjust and move on the fly. It's incredible. And I'm not taking that lightly either. I mean, Saquon Barkley literally just jumped over a dude's head last year backwards, which is still to this day the most incredible individual play that I've ever seen on a football field. But Bijan Robinson is right up there with him as one of the greatest player when it comes to those tight confined spaces and making people miss. Keith goes on to say 0% chance we trade Bijan. No, absolutely not. I'm talking about a Joe Burrow trade, a speculative Joe Burrow trade. It's not happening. It's not. And Bijan's not going anywhere either. And you make a good point here. He's a running back / a wide receiver. He's listed as a running back, of course. But, I mean, he led the team in receiving last week. He's a constant threat to lead this team in receiving. He is that damn good. And when they actually worked him out, when they were bringing him through the draft process, they worked him out as a wide receiver. So I do expect them to pay him. Keith, I see your comment there. Pay him. Yes, you're exactly right. Pay the guy. They need to bring him back. I'm going to go back up through some comments. I skipped all the way to the bottom on accident there, and I didn't want to miss anybody. Trenton, he says, Kirk Cousins a few weeks, then back to the regular scheduled program, QB1, Michael Penix Jr. I assume you're answering the prompt who could be the starting quarterback for the Falcons in 2026. Yeah, I mean, Michael Penix Jr. is going to be the starting quarterback at some point, I believe. He should be. I mean, like barring any crazy setbacks or anything like that. I got a couple scenarios. that I'm going to throw your way, Trenton. So hang tight. JLTC, is that what that says? JLTCDN369 says, if we change OC or quarterback, shouldn't we just change it all? Our window seems majorly messed up. That's a fair assessment. And I think a lot of where we feel the Falcons will be in 2026 revolves on what the decision is at quarterback, or not a quarterback, but a head coach. That influences quarterback, that influences coordinators, that influence everything. Absolutely everything. And unfortunately, that would also include a Jeff Ulbrich, a guy who I think a lot of people would be pretty happy for him to stay. But if you hire a new head coach, you're not going to put a stipulation on a defensive coordinator staying as a reason for a stipulation for a new head coach. Like saying that you can coach here, but only if you keep a defensive coordinator just because we like him a lot. It's not going to happen. He's just going to say no, and he'll say, thank you. This could be my one opportunity to be a head coach in the NFL. I'm going to say no, but you talk about the defense for that. You talk about the offense, Zach Robinson, who I don't feel like is going to be back. I just haven't seen enough from him. And I don't think that if Raheem Morris gets one more bite at the apple, which I'm feeling there's potential for that at this point, then I think that you're going to see a change at offensive coordinator. I think you're also going to see a change with Marquise Williams at special teams coordinator. You have another gaffe here in the game on Sunday, but ultimately I'd say that Marquise Williams, I mean, he isn't fully to blame for all the problems, but you might be talking about a scapegoat at the end of the season, he and Zach Robinson. I think ultimately that's going to be the way it ends up. And then who you get as OC, it remains to be seen. But that does influence everything. I mean, it absolutely does. If you do move on and go get a new head coach, maybe your head coach wants to start from scratch. Maybe your head coach wants to go find a new quarterback. Maybe your head coach wants to maybe bottom out in 26. Maybe your new head coach wants to go for it in 2026. There are a lot of different scenarios, and the next 3 weeks are going to be, and I'm including the first week of the of the off season in this. The next 3 weeks are going to be probably 3 of the most important weeks for the next 6 months. You go all the way into the off season, changes everything. It changes absolutely everything. And it could start with maybe you get a win against the Rams on Monday night. What happens then? Maybe you lose in just humiliating fashion, which is also absolutely in the cards. I mean, you're an 8.5-point dog. There are a lot of different things that can happen. And look, you can also lose to the Saints. The Saints are playing really good football right now, and they've won, 3 games in a row? shoot, they could come to Atlanta in week 18, having won 4 games in a row with a young quarterback and Tyler Shugg and playing really good ball. And maybe they come in and shock the Falcons at home. And who knows what's going to happen. And all of these things can change. But you do bring up a very good point. Trenton says, Bijan is the face of our franchise. What percent do you think? What percent do you think? Oh, percent chance we trade Bijan. I don't think we trade Bijan. I would be extremely surprised if the Falcons opted to do that. He's one of the best playmakers in the NFL, period, point blank. Not even just running backs. He's just an all-purpose beast. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He's very good in pass protection. He runs the ball well. I mentioned how great he is in tight space. We've talked about his scrimmage yards. We've talked about all kinds of things. But we're not trading him. It's not happening. I would just be absolutely blown away. Craig Air Force says, I'm done with Penix, injury prone since college. Well, in fairness, he hadn't dealt with any injuries, I believe, since 2021. He had some injuries. Everyone gets nicked up playing football, but I think 2021 was his last season that he actually dealt with a season-ending injury. 2022, 2023, and 2024, 3 years, he goes without injuries. And it is his opposite knee. So, look, injury prone, not injury prone. He has had some season-ending injuries. I don't want to hold everything over his head. Tim Allen was his head coach in Indiana, and Tim Allen was trying to get him to go be Michael Vick, right? He was trying to get him out to roll out of the pocket and go just make things with his legs, and it just wasn't very good. And that's one of the big reasons why he got hurt, right? Not the same case when he was in Washington. He was a drop back passer. He operated from the pocket, and he was effective at doing so. He had a tough year this year, and it's going to be very interesting to see what happens moving into next season. He's going to miss one of the most important years for development for a young quarterback. After year 2, you're getting it. And look, every next offseason's the next big year, right? Especially for a guy who really started finding his rhythm in that game against Carolina before he got hurt. It's just so frustrating to see that for him. But you see that first full year as a starter, that offseason right after that often becomes a heavily consequential offseason for young quarterbacks. You've seen it with a lot of Drake May, look, perfect example right there. Caleb Williams, perfect example right there. You see these guys have a really consequential offseason and then they take off. Same is the case with Michael Penix in Atlanta, potentially, but it's not going to be that way. He's going to be on the mend from an ACL injury. Of course, it's going to be till August that we get our first look of him and see what he could look like in 2026, right after training camp. But his timeline makes things a little bit more complicated. Rio Deshaun Alexander Smith, my man over there on Facebook, says, if Raheem somehow gets these guys to win the next 2 games and finish 8-9, he probably saves his job. I agree. I was talking to some folks about this. I've had several people texting me and asking me specifically what I think. Honest to God, I think he's going to keep his job. If the Falcons go 8-9, I think he's got it. I think if the Falcons go 7-10, I actually think that he's got it. Barring a lopsided, crazy result, what we saw with Arthur Smith at the very end there, where he just gets mollywopped by the Saints, and that's all she wrote, right? Felt a little bit different after that one. Felt like he lost the team. Felt like there was just the mentality of the team, the bad taste in the mouth of Arthur Blank. That's why I got after that game, So then we'll see what happens with this. Technically, Raheem Morris could fall by the same fate as Arthur Smith did. But I tend to agree with you, Rio. I do think that he does retain his job. If he wins one of the next 2 games, I think there is a really good chance that Raheem Morris is the head coach of the Falcons next season. Rio says London would have been a Pro Bowler if he had stayed healthy. I agree. Yeah, had he stayed healthy. He was top 5 in basically every statistical output. He was second or third in total reception or reception shares, right? His target share, that's the word. He was targeted several times, and he was the top option for Michael Penix. He would have been the top option for Kirk Cousins as well. He's a stud, and he absolutely deserved to be in the Pro Bowl, but got robbed just because he's dealing with some injuries and everything else, the PCL, and that's just sort of a bummer. But it's another thing for him to look forward to next season moving forward. Oh, keep on going through. All right. I do want to talk a little bit about what's going on. Keep dropping those questions and comments. I'm happy to get to as many of those as you guys drop in there. And if we divert and we just answer your questions for the pod, I would be more than happy to do that for most of the pod. I do want to talk a little bit about what happened against the Arizona Cardinals because they do go and get the win against the Arizona Cardinals out there in Glendale, Arizona. And final score is 26-19. And look, this was a good game here for the Falcons. I know that they trailed 10-0 and then they trailed 13-3, but bear with me. You had the PAT that's blocked. Bear with me. They rallied. They scored 23. They outscored the Cardinals 23-6. And they really won this game in all three phases. I understand they had the PAT blocked, but Zane Gonzalez hit his other two field goals, or his other two extra points, and both of his field goals. Got a hair in my mouth. Kirk Cousins he led this offense to 342 yards of total offense. It wasn't an elite game for him under center. He throws for about 200 yards. He's efficient at quarterback, has the 2 touchdowns, has the interception, but he kept the offense on schedule. Maybe not becoming of a guy who's set to make a $57 million cap hit next year, but again, that's going to be a discussion here in just a minute. Bijan Robinson, we've talked about him a lot. He goes for his 10th straight game, or not straight game, but 10th game this season with 100+ yards. He's had 5 games this season when he has 150 yards from scrimmage. Kyle Pitts was fantastic again, 7 catches for him, 57 yards, a touchdown. And look, this guy has been clutch on third downs this season. Raheem Morris said as much after the game and on Monday. Kyle Pitts was the biggest reason why the Falcons were so successful in third downs. They went to him frequently. I want to say 4 of his catches went for a first down. 4 of his 7 catches. I mean, he had over half of the Falcons' third down conversions. That's why they were 7-14. I mean, you in a vacuum, 57 yards and a touchdown isn't all that impressive, but now he's getting closer and closer and closer to getting to that 1,000-yard mark for the first time since he was a rookie. And I think the biggest question, or my biggest question after last week, was what was he going to look like with Drake London coming back into the fold? We got that answer. He's still the number 2 option. I think Drake's still kind of on the mend. He's still trying to come back. We're going to get a better look here when the LA Rams come to Atlanta. This is going to be a good opportunity here for Kyle Pitts because he's either auditioning for his future team because he's going to make a lot of money on the free agency market, especially after what they did on Thursday Night Football. But I think he's also very much playing his way into a contract with the Atlanta Falcons. I have been very down on him. I've admittedly been down on him. But I've seen a resurgence from him. And one big stat from him that I saw, I think it was Josh Kendall pulled out last week. He said that Travis Kelce was a year younger than he was when he recorded his first NFL stat. That's crazy. Take that in for a second. His first NFL catch came when he was a year younger than Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts has been in the league now for 5 years. He's 25 years old. He may only just be entering his prime. That's kind of wild to think about. He's already had a 1,000-yard season. He looks like he may potentially get to a second 1,000-yard season. It's pretty damn good. You know, and for all the frustration, and rightfully so, that Falcons fans have had with him, he's turned it on down the stretch. He has been very, very good. Now, how much of that is because it's a contract year and he's entering the final couple of games of that contract? I don't know. It's up to Terry Fontenot, assuming he's the general manager making the decision. It's up to Terry Fontenot to figure out. But I did like what I saw with him and Drake London back in the fold and the way that it opens things up for Bijan Robinson. You can start hitting him with some of those swing passes. Raheem Morris talked about it after the game. This offense was at full strength. Assuming, well, I mean, granted, you weren't with Michael Penix, but you still had a viable starting quarterback with Kirk Cousins. Your arsenal was at full strength, and you got a good look at it. The wide receiver room still leaves a lot to be desired, just with Darnell Mooney, David Sills, and these other guys. But Drake London was there, Kyle Pitts was there, Bijan Robinson. You saw all of these guys contributing, and I was pretty pleased. I think that, I mean, look, play caller issues aside, the offense was humming. The offense did exactly what it needed to, and it was a big reason why the Falcons won this football game. Defensively, run defense still not great. Still not super great. Michael Carter going off for the way that he did, and going off in relative terms. But Michael Carter did pretty well in this game, but the pass rush is still tremendous. They have 50 sacks so far this season. 50 sacks. Who would have thought this Falcons team would have 50 sacks? 50! It's crazy. But look, after the big investment that you made this offseason, I think you'd really hope so. But you're 5 away now from a franchise record. 5 away. You have 2 games to do it. I think you got a pretty good shot at doing it, at least against the New Orleans Saints in Week 18. Next week is going to be a pretty tough challenge. I understand. I mean, Matthew Stafford, they will allow a couple of sacks, but he's a veteran quarterback. He's not going to get too bad, right? He's not going to run away from too many things, but he's also not going to take bad sacks. It's not something he does, but maybe the Falcons can upset that. But that is a discussion for a later time because of what they did to Jacoby Brissett in this game. Held him to 52% completion, 200 yards of offense, a touchdown, and an interception. And CJ Henderson, he played well in this one. He slammed the door with that interception. I was thrilled with what we saw from the secondary. That was my big key to this game because you have Jacoby Brissett coming in here. He's leading the NFL in yards per game. You hold him about 100 yards below his average for the season. And Trey McBride is absolutely shut down. 4 catches, 27 yards. Jesse Bates, Divine Diablo. Felt personal. That's what Kobe Bryant said, at least. I asked Divine Diablo about it on Monday, and he did not disagree. But tremendous effort here from the Atlanta Falcons. Started pretty slow. I think that you can't really afford to have that slow of a start down the stretch, but we'll see what they do coming into Monday. And again, we got some time to talk about that on Monday. But you're one step closer to yet another massively consequential offseason. I'm going to get into the Kirk Cousins future quarterback discussion here in just a second. I want to dive into some of your comments here, your questions, comments, everything else. Keith Robbins says, Kirk been doing good in prime time. I agree. Yeah, he's got a big opportunity here. If he can do what he did against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, against the LA Rams, great. If he looks like he did against the Seattle Seahawks, not so great. Big opportunity for all parties involved. Trenton says, from today, are there any other examples of teams bringing in outside parties to evaluate the franchise? And do the Sportology group evaluate money going and out versus production of that money, or with versus I don't, sorry, I got a little confused there reading through that. I don't know. I mean, different organizations do things differently, Trenton. Some people do have outside help. Some people don't. I know Arthur Blank has his trusted advisors. I know a lot of people are not very fond of them, whether it's Beatles or McKay or anybody else, or his son who's coming up and taking the reins soon. He's not some people aren't thrilled about it, but that's who he trusts, and that's who he has in his inner circle. History tells us that he's not going to bring in anybody, but you also bring in search firms, and search firms come in and they independently go through and identify head coaching candidates. And that's generally how a lot of teams handle it, but everybody does it just a little bit differently. I mean, you look at the Colts owner, she's wearing a headset on the sideline, right? So different people do different things. And Jerry Jones is the freaking general manager. Everyone does it a little bit differently. Trickside Soldier 7845 over there on YouTube says, I don't think I can handle Algier leaving. I love the duo. Reminds me of the Freeman-Coleman duo. Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I'd say the better comparison, in my opinion, is the Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery up in Detroit. Excuse me. I think having a great running back duo is tremendous. Having both of those guys in there, I think, makes a big impact for this team. And you saw it on some of those third and shorts. The gotta have it plays. They had Tyler Algier in, and he did a great job. He did the gotta have it thing, and he got the first down. Having a guy like that is very valuable, but that's also not necessarily somebody that you want to pay $8-9 million for necessarily. If he's willing to take a little bit less, maybe he becomes an option. But again, it becomes kind of a difficult selling point here for the Falcons. If it gets too expensive for a backup running back. It's just the way of the NFL. And he may get starter money. And if he does, good for him. Good for him. And we should be happy for him. Unfortunate for our Falcons, but happy for him. Trenton comes back and says, third-party evaluation makes me feel like they were evaluating Terry and McKay. If it were Raheem being evaluated, they wouldn't use an outside source, would they? Are you reporting on something? Is there something else? I don't know if there's a report that you're talking about, Trenton. Drop it in the comments. I don't know what you're referring to. If so, I've been working my other job most of today, unfortunately. Gregory Bennett says, I don't hate keeping Raheem. I believe front office changes need to be made. Keeping continuity is a good thing. Check out Shanahan's first few years in San Francisco. I do think that continuity is an extremely underrated thing in football, especially, but in all sports. It's hard to really get a full sample size after 2 seasons. I understand the frustration. I feel the frustration. It's something that fans feel, and what ownership and front offices have to work through, right? Things get difficult, and you have to be able to weather that storm and kind of get through to the other side on that. It's just, you have to see where the vision is. You have to see where the arrow is pointing. And Mike McDaniel's a good example of that down there in Miami. You look at somebody who I'd say is widely considered to be an offensive mastermind, a really good head coach, a very well-respected coach in the NFL, just didn't have a quarterback, and you could probably make that argument for Raheem at various points. I mean, he's got a young quarterback. He dealt with a lot of injuries. He lost his right tackle. He lost his left guard. He lost his wide receiver 1. He lost his wide receiver 2. Didn't really have a wide receiver 3. Oh, wait, because he cut him. Your defense lost its most valuable player. You lost your cornerback 1. You lost your cornerback 2. You lost your defensive tackle. You lost your defensive tackle 2. I mean, it's been tough. It's been very tough in the injury department. And they've been banged up, and that may end up, and especially if you end the season 7-10 and just on the outside looking in on the postseason, which, yes, it may end up happening. You might be on the outside looking in just barely. I mean, obviously you're eliminated, so that's not happening. But if you hold out against the Carolina Panthers a couple of weeks ago, you're tied for first place in the NFC South right now, which is bonkers to say, but that's how bad the NFC South is right now. Continuity, though, to your point, Gregory, it is an extremely underrated thing. You can point to things across the NFL. You can look at Bear Bryant. I mean, there are a lot of at college level. You can go across to a lot of different sports and see continuity takes a couple of years. And as long as you have the buy-in from the players and the arrow is pointing up, my brand manager at 92.9 The Game, he talks about this a lot. What direction is the arrow pointing? Right now, you might be able to make an argument that the arrow is pointing up. Now, personnel decisions, I think, have been wanting in Flowery Branch, but again, we'll see what he does. They might give them one last hurrah, and I'm starting to think that's going to be the case. Keep on lowing through. Gregory says, he says also, don't kill the messenger. Deshaun Watson will most likely end up a Falcon. Blank loves the kid. Actually, not a terrible thought there, Gregory. I actually didn't have him on my list. You just brought up a great idea. And I wonder, not that he's definitely not going to be a popular option for obvious reasons. But if he is affordable, he'd be making a homecoming. And I know that some fans would be happy to see him. But again, I mean, the performance on the field has been dreadful. If and when he plays, he hasn't played in several years. I think it's a year and a half now that he hasn't made an appearance. Obviously, he's not going to make an appearance this year. But he's another guy coming off of an Achilles injury. He also retore his Achilles. I don't think that he's getting another contract, truthfully. He made a fortune with the Cleveland Browns. He's a pariah in the NFL. And he's not very popular with a lot of fans. He may be popular in Atlanta with some fans. I think some fans would be happy to have him back. He's a Gainesville native, right? So I think it depends. But no, I would not. It's an interesting thought experiment there, but no, I don't think it's actually going to happen. Interesting thought, though. Trenton comes back and says, we got a win, so I've been pretty quiet. But on the PAT block, what do you think of Matthews and Hinton execution there? Seemed to me effort lacks, not the only field goal block due to effort recently. I don't question NFL players on their effort. That's not going to be something that I'm going to do. It's going to be a technique issue. I need to go back and look at it specifically. I haven't actually dug into that part of it. So I can't effectively answer your question, Trenton, unfortunately. But I would be very hesitant to ever question the effort, especially if somebody like Jake Matthews, right? He's somebody who's a stalwart for this franchise. You need that one extra play. I mean, I'm not going to question there. Edward McKendrick says Zach Robinson has to go. His play calling sucks. He's certainly not popular. I think that's not exactly the hottest of takes from me, but I don't expect him to be back in 2026, regardless of who's the head coach. Halsey says sign and trade Pitts for Brian Thomas Jr. I don't think they're trading Brian Thomas Jr. I don't think that that's going to end up being the case. Especially with the direction that Liam Cohen and company are going down there in Jacksonville. I don't think so. They have a chance to be a number 1 overall seed. They're not going to make a move like that necessarily. They've got Jacoby Myers. You've got, and look, you've got talent on that team. And Brian Thomas Jr. is going to be an interesting player potentially to watch. Maybe that he becomes a malcontent and you see what you can get from that, but I don't expect that to be the case, especially with the trajectory of that program and where they're going as a franchise. Sam comes through. Malik Willis should be the starting quarterback for the Falcons. Hold tight. Give me just a minute. Let me take a couple more of your comments. And then we're going to jump into our final portion of the program tonight. Halsey says, seems like Pitt produces when the quarterback play isn't bad. He produced a couple of times with Michael Penix too. I mean, I think that's not necessarily a fully fair thing. But what does that say? Sean UF 5152 says, seems that Pitts became motivated when a new contract is imminent. He should be consistent and play dynamic ball all the time. So I think a lot of what it is, Kurt Benkert said this. He was a former Falcons quarterback. He's now I think it was like Sleeper HQ or something like that. He had a pretty good point on this. It's based off of the game plan more than anything. I mean, he has had some plays where people can reasonably question route running and other things. And I mean, it has not been the case this season. I think he's not a very good run blocker. He's not a good pass blocker necessarily, but I think he's shown progress. I think he's been a lot better, especially in the second half of this season. To this point, to your point, I mean, it could be because the contract is imminent. It could be for that reason. We won't know that. Nobody besides maybe himself and his agent would know that. Maybe their head coach or something else. Maybe I don't know. But I do know that his output has been closer to what we expected it to be. This is what the Falcons expected of him. And if this is what we're going to get moving forward, then, he needs to be the Falcon. You need to keep him because he's right on pace with some of the best players in the NFL. He's second in the NFL right now among tight ends. So that's a guy that you need to have on your roster. It just depends on what the price looks like, depends on a lot of other factors and everything else. Obviously, does he want to play here? Does he want to go do something else? I don't know. Do the Falcons even want to risk a long-term extension for him, especially after the way that he's played? Again, it all remains to be seen. Keith said, commentary said that Robinson called good plays all year. He must not have watched too many Falcons games this year. Yeah, well, fair enough. All right. Rio Deshaun Alexander Smith says, I don't know if anyone here plays Madden, but how in the hell is a dude who almost has 10 sacks, still a 71 rating? Brandon Doros. They've done recalibrations, ratings, stuff like that. They change ratings all the time. Rio, I doubt that they've actually done that. I would fully expect him to have a much higher rating moving forward. I would expect that. The guy's among the best interior pass rushers this season. He's been that good. He's really, really damn good. He has a chance to be an all-pro this season if he continues the way that he's been playing. All right, I'm going to jump in here and dive into some of our picks here for the quarterback position. So Kirk Cousins, he's averaging just under 200 yards per game passing, right? He's got 8 touchdowns. He's got 4 interceptions. Most of those came against the Seahawks. And aside from that dreadful showing that he had against the Seahawks, he's completed 60% of his passes in 5 starts. 3-3 as a starter. Could he be back in 2026? We had a previous discussion. My opinion on the matter really hasn't changed all that much. My answer is still no. I don't think that he's going to be the starting quarterback for the Falcons in 2026. I think that if Raheem Morris comes back, I'd say that they have a potential chance of doing that. I think that there's a level of trust that doesn't exist between Kirk Cousins and the Falcons organization. That's strictly my opinion. I'm not basing that on anything that I've heard from Kirk, anything I've heard from the Falcons, anything else like that. Strictly my opinion. $57 million is also pretty big. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money, right? And he's set to make that as a cap number in 2026 and in 2027. Raheem Morris said everything is on the table. But again, is that number big enough for the Falcons to consider having him or to cut him? Because he's also got a $10 million roster bonuses that are going to hit on the 5th day of the league year. It's a very expensive deal. Let's just put it that way. Maybe you cut him and try to re-sign him. You spread out some of that dead cap hit. You can make it a post-June 1st designation. You can save a lot of money. And look, if you want to go deeper into this discussion here as far as keeping Kirk Cousins, I did previous shows on this, and you're more than welcome to go check those out. But I was able to put together a handful of options here for the Atlanta Falcons should they decide to look for a free agent, look for somebody other than Kirk Cousins to be the starting quarterback. And the first option, it's not necessarily the sexiest option, but it is the simplest one. Oftentimes, the best option is the one that you don't have to go very far to find. In this case, it'd be the current Falcons backup quarterback, Easton Stick. Again, not the sexiest of the options here for the Falcons necessarily, but he has not seen game action in 2025. He did provide some serviceable work during the preseason and during training camp. His best sample size came with the Chargers a couple of years ago in 2023. Played in 5 games. He started 4. He completed 63% of his passes for just under 1,200 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception, but he was 0-4 as the starter. If you're going for the serviceable option, if you're going for somebody who's you're familiar with, maybe that there's some value in that. Maybe you want to bring somebody in who's not going to push Michael Penix too hard, make him rush back from his knee injury. I think there are some potential options for that. Again, it's not the sexiest of options, but it may be potentially the most prudent, cost-effective, and more status quo-esque decision that the Falcons could make. And one of you guys, and credit to one of you guys here in the comments, you guys brought up another one. It's Malik Willis, one of the more interesting candidates for the Falcons here. This is a guy who had a really strong showing against the Bears in Week 16. He's a 4th-year player, came off the bench for Jordan Love after he had his concussion, completed 9 of 11 passes, 121 yards, touchdown in the game, added 44 yards on the ground. He's a Westlake kid. He's from the greater Atlanta area. He's from Roswell, Georgia. Could make a homecoming in 2026 with something to prove here. He was selected by the Titans in the 3rd round, started just 3 games, traded to the Packers in 2024 after they chose to go with Will Levis, who they took in the 2nd round. They traded him for just a 7th round pick, which I felt was a little maybe disrespectful. I don't know, but he started 3 games. That's all we really know for sure. But since being in Green Bay, Malik Willis, he's appeared in 10 different games. He started 2. He's won both of those games. He threw for 684 yards, 5 touchdowns, and rushed for 201 yards and the touchdown. And I think that he could do a lot for his stock here over the next couple of weeks because Jordan Love, he's dealing with a concussion. Of course, they're going to try to get him back, and you have to go through concussion protocols and everything else, and there are league mandates on all that stuff, so I'm not trying to insinuate anything else. But if you've got a Jordan Love and he is banged up, maybe Malik Willis has a chance to show you what he's got. And they're going to be in the midst of a playoff push. So you can see what he looks like playing December football. That's a very real thing, really real thing to see what he can do. Just sort of an interesting option there for maybe a young, exciting option who can come in and potentially push Michael Penix for starting opportunities. But at the same time, I think that he might be one of the pricier options here of the guys who he might go sign to be a starter somewhere. I don't know if he's necessarily going to want to come in and be a potential bridge type of quarterback. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. Maybe he wants to come home. Maybe he wants to get another chance to audition at the first part of the season. But that's Malik Willis. Next person here. Oh, that's just right back into Malik. Here is Tyrod Taylor. He's one of the more steady options. Again, not another sexy one, but it's somebody who knows how to come in and be a bridge quarterback. Longtime reserve player. He's made 7 stops in his NFL career, spent 15 years, started just 62 games over 52 years. So he is somebody who knows how to be a backup quarterback, somebody who knows how to come in when he is called. And he's also mentored a lot of really good quarterbacks too. Baker Mayfield, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Michael Penix could add his name to that list. He's an ideal bridge type of quarterback. I really like him. The Falcons have seen him already this season. There's a lot of respect for this guy league-wide. I think he could be a great option here. And at the very least, he's a guy who can come in and give you really meaningful snaps in the preseason. He's somebody who can, come in and be a guy who gets Drake London ready to go. He gets Darnell Mooney and Kyle Pitts, assuming he comes back. Bijan Robinson kind of gets these guys warmed up. I think that he can be relatively affordable. You can potentially get him on a $5 million, $6 million a year He's going to be 35, I believe, by the time next season kicks off. Maybe he wants to retire. Maybe I doubt he does. I think he probably wants to go continue his career as a backup. Maybe he stays in New York. I don't know, but he is a pending free agent. He could be an option here for the Atlanta Falcons. I'm going to go with one more of the safe picks, and then I've got two more of the, I don't know, maybe a little spicier choices here for the Atlanta Falcons. Jimmy Garoppolo, not a sexy name. I mean, I know some people might say he's a sexy man, but this is not one of the sexier names here on the free agency market. But he's been steady over the last decade or so. He's won 2 Lombardi trophies, albeit as a backup. But he knows he's been on teams who played deep into the postseason. He's also led a team to a Super Bowl. He's had 64 starts in his career, but he's largely been a backup since 2023 when he got benched by the Raiders. He's made a couple of stops, though, but he's unlikely to take a lot of attention away from Michael Penix as he's coming back from his knee injury. And he's another guy who can kind of give you some veteran snaps during preseason and in training camp, should you want that from your guy. But again, his postseason experience could prove to be pretty valuable here for the Atlanta Falcons. It makes him at least a somewhat compelling possibility here for the Falcons next year. If not for any reason but that. He's a veteran. He's a guy who can come in, and I doubt he's going to command all that much money. Just he may want to go back to Los Angeles. Maybe he's kind of been on the West Coast for the last couple of years now. Maybe he wants to stay out there. I really don't know. Going from San Francisco to or from Las Vegas to San Francisco down to and then with the obviously with the Rams right now. He's bounced around a little bit. All right. Here's one that's kind of interesting. So bear with me here for a second. He's a former 3rd overall pick. He was in that 2021 draft where the Falcons ended up settling for Kyle Pitts at the 4th overall pick. He's talented. He's an enigma, and he's bounced around the league a little bit. The 49ers moved on from him. He went down to Dallas. He jumped over to the Chargers this season, and ultimately the arm talent is going to get him a new contract. Somebody will sign him. Somebody will try to see what he can do, and I would not be surprised if he goes somewhere where he has a chance to compete for starts. He's going to want to try to do that. He probably has one more chance in him. If I remember correctly, he was also tied to the Falcons. I know there were some rumors that came out. I mean, obviously that stuff is never going to be corroborated by the team or anything else like that, especially when he's drafted to another team. But it's been a very difficult season, very difficult career for Trey Lance. Since 2021, he's played in just 15 games. He's made 5 starts. That's 1,100 yards, 5 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. If you want to play kind of a risky hand, see what Trey Lance can do. I mean, I think it could be interesting, if not entertaining. I don't know. It could also go really, really badly. But Terry Fontenot, I mean, he appeared to have a lot of interest in this guy when he was going through the draft process. Maybe he comes back and maybe he wants to have some more. I don't really know with that one, but makes it for a compelling topic. And here's another one. And I know that there's going to be some people who scoff when I do this. Just bear with me. Zach Wilson. He's with the Miami Dolphins now. He was with the Denver Broncos last year. Did not play in a game for them. Did not play for the game for the Miami Dolphins on Sunday. I know that was a potential opportunity for him. The former New York Jet. And I know a lot of people are going to sit there and go, oh my God, why the hell are we talking about this guy? Well, because he was a number 2 overall pick. Very similar to Trey Lance. He's got very, very good arm talent. He's somebody who has high draft capital that was spent on him just a couple of seasons ago. And his biggest flaw is that he was drafted by the New York Jets, ultimately. And then they choose to replace him with Aaron Rodgers in 2023. Ironically, I mean, he goes down with just after, 3 snaps or so. And then it ends up being Zach Wilson anyway, and he gets benched in that game. He plays in 11, and then they move on from him. He had a difficult stint up there in New York, and I think that being in New York has a lot to do with that. He's now going through, and he's down in Miami, and you can see what playing for a competent quarterback type of coach can do for you. You had an opportunity potentially to see him on Sunday. You didn't end up seeing him. You saw Quinn Ewers instead, which I think maybe is a red flag. Yeah, probably. I think he's got a lot of red flags, if you really want to put it that way. But you can also put it this way. Sam Darnold had a lot of red flags. he revives his career with the Vikings last season. He lands with the Seahawks, and now they're potentially a number 1 overall seed. Geno Smith did something similar. He bounced around the NFL. Now, he had a resurgent year. He's regressed with the Raiders this year, but he turned his career around. Daniel Jones, Mac Jones. Lots of these people have followed this sort of new team, new me mantra. Maybe he could. And ultimately, you're looking for somebody to come in and be a bridge guy, just to potentially provide a spark for the team. Maybe win you a game or two. Should Michael Penix need a little bit longer to recover? These aren't supposed to be guys who are going to come in and be future franchise quarterbacks. I'm not suggesting any of that, but I am saying that maybe he can come in and be a serviceable option for a couple of weeks. That's really what it comes back to. Gregory over there on Facebook says Stetson Bennett. I actually don't know what Stetson Bennett's contract situation is. Let me take a look. I think he's still under contract here. I want to say. Yeah, so he's under contract for next season. So you would have to trade for Stetson Bennett. He's not necessarily somebody that I would put draft capital onto, Gregory, to answer your question there. You haven't seen him appear in a single game. I'd say Jimmy Garoppolo is probably the more likely of the players that you'd want to go get, something like that, if you want to go get a free agent quarterback. But I do want to dive into some of these trade candidates because these are people who you have seen a little bit more of a sample size of. Stetson Bennett he just hasn't played NFL snaps. If you want to get somebody to buy jerseys, Stetson Bennett could be a good option for that. Of course, he won 2 national championships with the Georgia Bulldogs, and he's going to be pretty popular there with Georgia football fans. But as far as winning football games and everything else, I don't necessarily think that he's going to be the case there. As far as other candidates go who could be traded for, here's one, Mac Jones. I know somebody in the comment section talked about Mac Jones. He's under contract with the 49ers through the 2026 season, but his cap hit is just $4 million. That's very reasonable there for an Atlanta Falcons team who may or may not want to do that. He steps into the starter for Brock Purdy. He won 5 of his 8 games. He held the offense together really effectively. You saw what he was when the Falcons went out there to Santa Clara. He played well. He's completed 70% of his passes, 268 yards per game, 13 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Still throws a lot of interceptions, still makes a couple of bad decisions with the football. But the 49ers, I would expect, want to hold on to him, especially after all of the injury concerns that they've had in recent years. They want to hold on to a guy who's on a pretty affordable deal. He's not making a lot of money, like I mentioned. So if you can keep him there, I would expect that they would. But it's like if you can send him a 6th round pick or something, like say Michael Penix has a setback, I think that's one of the times that you would potentially go and make a deal like that. The next one here, and Keith, you bring up a good point. We don't need popular, we need wins. I agree. That's why I wouldn't go make the deal for Stetson Bennett. Again, I'm just trying to think of plausible scenarios. But again, I don't think that that's necessarily in the cards there for the Falcons. Next one here is Jacoby Brissett. It's another one of those veteran journeyman type of quarterbacks. But look, that's where the Falcons find themselves. They're not drafting a quarterback. You want to get a guy in here who's going to be relatively affordable. But he carries like one of the slightly more expensive cap hits, $7.19 million here for Jacoby Brissett. But this is a guy who's also a little volatile. He's going to throw some interceptions, but he also throws a lot of touchdowns. He has 19 touchdowns this year. He's averaging 250 yards per game. He's completing 65% of his passes. Hasn't been winning games, but I blame that on the defense for the Cardinals, who have just ultimately not been able to play any semblance of defense. Have not really been able to do things effectively. It's not necessarily on him. It's not on Jacoby. I'd actually say Jacoby's had a pretty good season. It's more on a defense that just has not been able to get things done. And the final two here for me, kind of a package deal. I don't know if I can add these together. Am I able to do this? Hold on, I'm going to figure this out together. No, I can't. Well, whatever. I'm going to go through. We're going to start here with our boy Tua and Kyler Murray. So these are 2 expensive options here for the Falcons. They're both set to make a lot of money. So Kyler Murray is set to make an average of $46.1 million in an average annual value up until the 2028 season. He was soft benching earlier this season. He's on the injured reserve, but it also feels a little bit more like a soft benching. Tagovailoa, I mean, he also got hard benched. He was bona fide benched. He's making $53 million until 2028. You're not making a trade. You're not signing either one of these guys unless they're being cut. It's not happening unless they're being cut. You're not sending them draft capital and then them sending you this monstrosity of a quarterback contracts, right? Both of them could be looking to move on from them. And maybe you see something that happens frequently in the NBA where people send you draft picks to take on a contract. I don't think that the Falcons are going to do that. Maybe you could see a team like the New York Jets or something doing something like that, where they want to get some more first round picks. Maybe they want to acquire some more draft capital. Ultimately, I don't really foresee them doing something like that. But if you do cut them being the Tua and Kyler Murray, maybe you look at a guy who's getting kind of a Russell Wilson type of deal, who's going to go off and he's going to go play for the Pittsburgh Steelers for like $2 million. I mean, it's the only plausible option here for me, but that remains on the table. And I think that ultimately that's potentially the only real way that I could see them doing it. Because if you're going to get off the Kirk Cousins deal, and if you're not going to bring Kirk Cousins back, why would you go add a $50 million quarterback when you're just getting one off of your roster that same year, that same offseason? All right. Kind of where I stand on all that stuff, but that's some potential options here for the Atlanta Falcons moving into the 2026 season. Of course, there are a lot of other things that are on the table here for the Falcons. I think that you could, I don't think they're going to draft a quarterback. You don't have a lot of capital there. There are more options out there on the free agency market because I don't think a lot of people necessarily identified Easton Stick as a viable option necessarily, but they wouldn't sign him. So there could be some other guys, but I think that the Falcons, if they end up going and signing somebody else, I think it's going to be somebody who's on that list, starting with Easton Stick, who's already on this roster, obviously. But again, thank you, everybody. I really appreciate all of you who jumped into the podcast. We had hundreds of people across all platforms, and I really appreciate y'all. No matter if you're getting it live, appreciate it if you were here live. If you were joining us after the fact, it's always a pleasure. It's always fun talking some Falcons football with you. Remember, Scott and Nick, they are going to be back on Wednesday. They're going to dig into some more Falcons stuff, maybe preview the matchup coming up on Monday Night Football. I will not be here on Thursday. Obviously, it's Christmas. I'm going to be spending some time with my family and heading down to Orlando, too, because we're going to go. I also cover the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, and we're going to be digging into some Pop-Tarts down there in Orlando, Florida. But I'll be back. We'll have the game on Monday Night Football, and it's going to be a lot of fun digging into that one as well. But look, drop a comment. Let me know what you think. I would really appreciate all of you guys who were able to join us here. We will be back here very soon. My name is Garrett Chapman. Make sure to give me a follow at GChampETL. Make sure to go check out all the content that we have coming out. We still have tons of stuff coming out every single day. Head on over to si.com/NFL/Falcons/on-SI, or just type in Falcons on SI on Google. Hopefully you know how that works. You can go check out all the content there. But I appreciate all of you guys for jumping in. It's always a pleasure. And until next time, go Falcons.